Hello guys, welcome back. Now in this session we are going to discuss about infrastructure as code. So let's look into the agenda, what we are going to discuss in this session. So guys, in this session we are going to thoroughly discuss about what actually the infrastructure as code is, what benefit it offers. We will also discuss about how infrastructure as code works. And at last we will discuss about how many flavors of infrastructure as code is available and how it is different from each other. So let's start our discussion with understanding the infrastructure as code, what actually it is. So guys, let's start our discussion. So guys, this is the pictorial representation of the data center, and here each picture represents the rack space for the server. And for a long time, manual intervention was the only way of managing computer infrastructure. Like servers had to be mounted on racks, operating system had to be installed, and network to be connected and configured. And at that time, this was not a problem as development cycle were so long-lived that infrastructure changes were infrequent. So that means if we configured once, so we don't need to come back again and do the changes. So what it means, so you can understand this scenario as like this. In the earlier days, we don't have much infrastructure changes required whenever we are coming with a new application, as application development life cycle was taking so much of time, and because of that infrastructure changes were infrequent. And later, however, several technologies such as virtualization and the cloud combined with the rise of DevOps and agile practice. So what happened with this step? It shortened the software development life cycle drastically, and because of that there was a demand for better infrastructure management techniques. Organizations could no longer afford to wait for hours or days for server to be deployed. So to meet the quality standard of the infrastructure of an organization, infrastructure as code is comes into the picture. Infrastructure as code raises the bar of standard to maintain the infrastructure and also reduce the deployment time by using a combination of tools, languages, protocols, and processes. Infrastructure as code can safely create and configure infrastructure elements in seconds. So guys, the next question comes over here is what benefits infrastructure as code offers us, or say what benefits infrastructure as code offers to the organization. So guys, let's discuss about that. If any of the organization who is adapting the infrastructure as code, they are going to get these 6 benefits. The first one is the speed. So how we can get the speed? We will stop the manual management of infrastructure. Instead of that, we are going to manage our resources and manage our infrastructure with the help of code, like installation of patching, installation of servers, installation of operating system. All these things is going to be managed through the code. So that means if we have less manual intervention, that means we will achieve more speed while doing the deployment. The another benefit which we will get is the source control. With the help of source control system, we can easily manage our infrastructure as code in a more transparent manner, and we will also accountable the person who performed the task. Next benefit we are going to get is the documentation. The infrastructure code serves as living documentation of the actual state of the infrastructure that we can easily verify with the documentation, as our entire infrastructure exists within the code. Next benefit we are going to get if we are using the infrastructure as code is consistency, as we are going to deploy our entire infrastructure with the help of code that will help us to deploy the identical infrastructure across the board. The next benefit we are going to get if we are using the infrastructure as code, that is agility. So guys, as we all know that DevOps has made software delivery more efficient, same way infrastructure as code brings agility to the infrastructure management. The last but not the least benefit of infrastructure as code is reusability. Infrastructure as code makes it easy to create reusable model that we can use to spin up any of the environment. For example, if we are working in a development environment, we can easily replicate the development environment and production environment. So guys, this is about benefit of infrastructure as code. Now let's discuss about how infrastructure as code works. So let's jump into the another diagram. So guys, if you closely look into this diagram, then you will find that on a high level, infrastructure as code works in 3 steps. At the first step, developers write the infrastructure specification in a domain-specific language. Next, the resulting files are sent to a master server, that is a code repository. And from the code repository, the platform takes all the necessary steps to create and configure the computer resources. And that resource can be anything. It might be exist within the infrastructure, it might exist into the cloud, or it might exist on premises. And this is how infrastructure as code works. So guys, this is about how infrastructure as code works. Now let's discuss about types of infrastructure as code. So guys, basically we are having 4 types of infrastructure as code. The first way by which we can manage our infrastructure is the scripting. Writing a script is the most direct approach for managing the infrastructure as code. This way of managing the infrastructure is very good if we are having a small kind of infrastructure setup, or say ad hoc script we need to write for executing simple, short, or one of the tasks which we want to perform on the infrastructure. So you must be asking that what is the alternative if you want to manage the infrastructure on a larger scale. For that thing we are having the specialized tools as per the task. So now let's proceed further and discuss about configuration management tools. This is another type of infrastructure as a code. The tools which falls into this category basically used to perform the configuration management task. For example, with the help of configuration management tool, we can manage the installation of the software within the servers. So in this category, we are having variety of tools like Ansible, Ceph, Puppet. All these tools are exclusively designed for configuration management. Some of the tools is designed on top of Python. Like if you take an example of Ansible, then this is the tool which is developed on Python script. Same way Puppet is developed on Rails and Ruby. Anyway, let's proceed further. So there is another type of infrastructure as code is provisioning tools. So in this category we are having Terraform, CloudFormation, OpenStack Heat. So guys, provisioning tools focus on creating infrastructure. Using these type of tools, developers can define exact infrastructure components. And as in this course, we are going to learn about the Terraform, and we will discuss every aspect of Terraform that will help us to clear our associate certification for Terraform. One thing I wanted to let you know over here is Terraform is multi-cloud support, or say multi-provider support provisioning tool. So that means if you are learning Terraform, you can manage AWS as well, you can manage Azure also, you can manage GCP cloud also, and many other infrastructure compared to other provisioning tool over here. Like I have given an example of CloudFormation, that is specific for the AWS vendor, or say AWS provider. So this CloudFormation will only work with AWS cloud. So if you want to set up the infrastructure on AWS, this will work perfectly fine. But with the help of CloudFormation, you can't design multi-provider infrastructure. Multi-provider infrastructure means some services I want to use from AWS, some services I want to use from the Azure, some services I want to use from the Google Cloud. So that kind of infrastructure we can't set up with the help of CloudFormation, as it is specific for the single provider, that is AWS. But if we are working with the Terraform, it provides us the capability to work with multiple vendors or multiple provider, and we can easily write the code for provisioning the multi-vendor, or say multi-provider cloud infrastructure within a single script. Anyway, that we are going to discuss every aspect of Terraform in the upcoming sessions. So now let's discuss about the last type of infrastructure as code is the containers and templating tools. So guys, these tools generate templates or images preloaded with all the libraries and components required to run an application. Containerized workload are easy to distribute and have much lower overhead than running a full-size server. In this aspect, we are having various kind of containerized tools available like Docker, Vagrant, Arcity. All these tools offers the containers and templating capability. One thing I wanted to tell you over here is that Vagrant and Terraform are the tools from the same company, that is HashiCorp. So now let's proceed further and sum up our entire session, what we have learned in this session. So in this session, we have discussed about infrastructure as a code. Then we have also discussed about benefits. Then we have looked into how infrastructure as code works. And at last, we have also discussed about various types of infrastructure as code. I hope you enjoyed the session. If you have any feedback, you can write it to me. So on this note, I am stopping over here. See you in the next session. Till then, bye bye. Take care.